Sir Ironsoul kept going. Carl moved aside, but the figure turned too, and before Carl could dodge away, he was pinned in the corner with the little knight sword moving closer and closer. What's he doing? The sword is sharp. Stop it, Doctor. Make it stop. Dr. Kalmenius whistled 3 or 4 bars of a simple haunting little tune, and Sir Ironsoul fell still. The point of the sword was right at Carl's throat. Apprentice eased his way past the figure and sank onto a chair, weak with fear. Who, how did it start? This is uncanny. Did you set it off? Oh, I didn't start him, said Dr. Kalmenius. You did? I did. How? It was something you said. His mechanism is so delicate, so perfectly balanced, that one word, and one word alone, will make him move. And he's such a clever little fellow. Once he's heard that word, he won't rest until his sword is in the throat that uttered it. What word? Said Carl fearfully. What did I say? Clockwork, goblin, move, work, spirit, devil. Once again, Sir Ironsoul began to move. He turned around impeccably and found Carl and set off towards him. The apprentice was out of his chair in a flash and covering in the corner. That was it! He cried. Stop it again, please, Doctor. Dr. Kalmenius whistled some more, and the figure stopped. What is that tune? Said Carl. Why does he stop for that? It's a little tune called The Flowers of Lapland, said Dr. Kalmenius. He likes that, bless him. He stands still to listen to it, and that tips his balance wheel the other way, and then he stops. What a marvel! What a piece of work! I'm afraid of him. Oh, come, come! Afraid of a little tin man who likes a pretty tune? It's uncanny. It's not like a machine at all. I don't like it. Well, that's a great shame. What will you do without him tomorrow? I shall be watching with great interest. No, no, said Carl in anguish. I didn't mean, I don't know what I mean. Do you want him? Yes, no, cried Carl, beating his fists together. I don't know. Yes. Then he is yours, said Dr. Kalmenius. You have wound up the future, my boy. It has already begun to tick. And before Carl could change his mind, the clockwork maker gathered his long cloak around him, swept the hood up over his head, and vanished out of the door with his sledge. Carl ran to the door after him, but the snow was so thick that he could see nothing. Dr. Kalmenius had vanished. Carl turned back into the parlour, sat down weakly. The little figure stood perfectly still, with his sword upraised, and its blank metal face grazing at the young apprentice. He wasn't a man, Carl muttered. No man could make this. He was an evil spirit. He was the He clapped his hands over his mouth and looked in terror at Sir Ironsoul, who stood motionless. I nearly said it, Carl whispered to himself. I mustn't ever forget. The tune. How does it ever go? If I can remember that, I'll be safe. He tried to whistle it, but his mouth was too dry. He tried to hum it, but his voice was shaking. He held out his hands and looked at him. They were trembling like dry leaves. Perhaps if I have another drink, he said. He poured some more brandy, splashing most of it on the counter before he got some in the glass. He swallowed it quickly. That's better. Well, after all, I could put him in the clock, and if I bolted to the frame, he'd be safe enough. He wouldn't be able to get out of that, no matter what words anyone said. He looked around them fearfully. The parlour was as silent as the grave. Then he lifted the curtain and peered through the window, but there was not a single light in the town square. Everyone in the world seemed to have gone to bed, and the only beings who were awake were the clockmaker's apprentice and the little silvery figure with the sword. Yes, I'll do it, he said. So he threw the canvas over to the iron soul hastily, and pulled on his coat and hat, and hurried up to unlock the tower and prepare the clock. Now, as it happened, there was another person awake. That was Gretel, the landlord's little daughter. She couldn't sleep at all, and the reason for that was Fritz's story. There was one thing she couldn't get out of her mind. It wasn't the clockwork in the dead prince's breast. It wasn't the horses foaming with terror or the dead river behind them. It was the young Prince Florian. She thought, poor little boy, to travel home in that frightful way. She tried to imagine what terrors he must have faced alone in the sledge with his dead father, and she shivered under the blankets and wished she could comfort him. And because she couldn't get sleep, she thought she'd go down and sit by the stove in the parlor for a while, because her bed was cold. So she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and tiptoed down the stairs just as the great clock in the tower was chiming midnight. There was no one in the parlor, of course, and the lamp was burning low, so she didn't notice the little canvas-covered figure in the corner, and sat down to warm her hands at the stove. What a strange story that was going to be, she said to herself. I'm not sure people ought to tell that stories like that. I don't mind ghosts and skeletons, but I think Fritz went too far this time. And didn't everyone jump when the old man came in? It was as if Fritz conjured him out of nothing, like Dr. Frost conjuring up the devil. And the sheet of canvas fell softly to the floor, and the little metal figure turned his head and raised his sword and began to move towards her.